Hi, I'm Angie Bado, and I'd like to welcome you back to our McKinneyNews.net series 2009, Your Best Year Ever. And I'm excited that today we're with our special guest, Diana Guintu, who's a licensed professional counselor who practices right here in Allen, Texas. And Diana's specialty for the last 10 years has been working with women in particular. And Diana, over the last 4 or so years, your particular special area is dealing with moms and particularly their Supermom syndrome?
Right, that's correct. You know, I realized really soon that women were struggling with this Supermom syndrome. And let me just clarify for everybody, what is Supermom?
I was going to ask that.
Syndrome. Well, what I refer to it is that it's the expectation of doing it all. Not only doing it all, but doing it perfectly. And so these are the moms that feel the pressure to, keep their house clean, neat and tidy all the time, to take the best course of action with their kids, serve in the community. I mean, just they're trying to do it all, but not only that, but they're trying to be perfect.
And looking perfect at the same time, I assume.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, so how did we get to this point where people are, and why do you think we see this, or is it more prevalent today than it used to be, say, 20 years ago?
You know, I don't necessarily think it's new. I think it's evolved. It's evolved to meet our times. You know, for example, maybe in the 50s and 60s, people kind of measured themselves up to like June Cleaver. You know, that kind of persona where everything was done, dinner was served, and so.
But I had to wear our pearls to dinner, serve dinner.
Exactly, ironed with heels and stuff. Right. But nowadays, I think that the pressure is still there. It's just different.
Okay. So, what do you think the most common issue moms face in that regard?
Well, I think that most moms that come into my office are suffering with anxiety, depression, an extreme case of loneliness, and I think that as soon as we start talking, we start to realize that they're burned out. You know, they're putting everybody first and themselves last.
So it's like we get on this treadmill and we can't get off because we are going, and we're comparing ourselves to everyone else, correct?
Right. That's correct. And not only that, I think that we compare ourselves to each other, but at the same time, we have that inner expectation of ourselves, which keeps us even more trapped in there.
So that inner expectation, does that come from something that went wrong in our childhood, say, or is it something we buy into because of PR? Like every magazine we pick up says we have to look beautiful and we're supposed to learn how to raise our kids just right, and you have to be active in your community, and so if we're doing all these things, or is it just something that some way we're trying to cope, some sort of coping mechanism?
I think it's a combination. I think that, obviously our environment plays a big role. So the roles that you see your mom being, obviously you kind of learn how to be a woman through the women in your life. But I also think obviously the media has a great part of it. I think that our friends, our communities really, influence us. And I think so that we're bombarded by all these messages that say we should do this. We should look good when we take our kids to school. We should we should volunteer in the classroom. We should, always support our husband. I mean, all these shoulds that before you know it, we don't know our voice inside.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, do you think this is something that is more prevalent here than, say, in Montana, or does it matter, or what do you think?
Well, I think, I've never been to Montana, but I would assume that every mom, no matter where you are, feels this enormous pressure to be the perfect mom, And so I think that here in the community that we live in, McKinney and Allen, the women that come into my office are reporting that they feel this enormous pressure to look good, to be the perfect mom, putting their kids in the perfect private, preschool, private school, serving in the community. So I think here, at least what I'm experiencing is these women, the women here that I work with, are suffering from that pressure.
So, Diana, do you think that we're seeing a place where women are, you said earlier that you see a lot of women who are experiencing anxiety.
Right.
So how does that typically manifest itself?
Well, I think that for the most part, our society, in my opinion, doesn't teach us coping skills.
Okay.
I think in general, most of us could probably learn some new coping skills, even in our
Absolutely.
adult life. So I think that added pressure with the lack of skills leads to us it manifesting into other ways. I always tell them it's going to come out somewhere, and sometimes it comes out sideways, and that is anxiety, depression, loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that balancing all those roles and not having the coping skills or even the time to
Sure.
create them is going to really cause some problems.